Hello and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's new episode of Primetime Gaming with Mr. Boomstick and friends. And indeed, we do have a lot of friends joining us. Not only is Hargeet here and Kayasante, we have a very special guest, One Bad Mother, but also the kneeless one, known as Everborn Saga, may be making an appearance because this topic is hot. And it's a hot topic because, well, Microsoft is making big changes to Xbox. The question is, how big? Well, based on what Phil Spencer said during the Polygon interview, well, extremely big. So big that they are industry changing. And in a way, that, well, look, we've talked about it. You've heard all of us on different podcasts say Microsoft, or specifically Xbox, well, they can't beat Sony at their own game. At least they can't, and they haven't. So they have to change the game. And changing the game is exactly how ultimately they will beat Sony, because as you can see by the headline of the title, Microsoft's vision for the next Xbox is a decade ahead of both Nintendo and PlayStation. And we're going to break down exactly how that is and what it means. But let's get into introductions. OBM, how the heck are you, man? Great to have you here.
I am great, Boom, and thanks for having me here again. And it's going to be a lot of fun here, especially with the panel we have. I'm sure we're going to get into some really deep conversations. But yeah, I was on vacation last week. I ate and drank probably worse than I had in the whole year before that combined. So I saw this new feature when I jumped into the Streamlabs today, basically like this enhancement filter. So hopefully it brought me back to down 10 pounds so that I look like I did when I came on before vacation. But really great to see you guys, and just look forward to getting into some of the nuance of today's topics.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And this is going to be a very heavy conversational, opinion based show tonight. Obviously, news is kind of slowed down. And sometimes you gotta bring to the table interesting topics. I really think that this is a hot topic just based on the information that came out of the way of that Polygon interview. But Kay Asante, you and I have been talking in the DMs, and we have some questions to some folks in the Xbox community wanting a smaller house to live in rather than getting the mansion and being okay with that. I don't understand why less is more. I understand that Sony seems to think like
Pause.
that. Some of the Sony's fans think like that, but less is not more, folks. We're going to break down exactly what that means. But Asante, how you doing, man?
Oh, I'm happy to be here, man. I'm doing great now. Work has been murdering me left and right. It's been a slog, but I'm here. I'm talking games, so all is right with the world. Good evening, everybody. It's good to be here.
Well, it's great to have you here, and sorry to hear about work. You haven't hit the lotto yet, so unfortunately, you still have to do that. Boo.
You know what it is. It's all good.
Yeah, oh
I'm here.
yes, absolutely. Hargi Chani, listen, Blind Riot in the chat says, he wants to hear more from you, and of course, we're going to let you go ham, as we always do, because, well, last week or the last time we were on, apparently, the conversation you didn't get a chance to drop your bars. Well, I would imagine you're going to drop them today. Hargi, how you feeling, brother?
Yeah, I'm good. I've been spending most of my free time writing my books.
Nice.
I've been pretty much doing outside of work. But yeah, so I haven't played much in gaming, but yeah, these are some interesting topics, like some interesting stuff going on, right? So, and then some new jazz rumors and stuff. But anyway, whatever.
Yeah, well, the Jets rumors I have not seen, so drop them into the DM so I could take a look. But you know what
Well,
I
I think
did see?
they're somewhat older. You probably have already talked about them, but essentially it was about the what the internal thoughts are as far
Oh
as
yeah,
the
yes,
brand,
yeah.
right? The damage versus stressed, right? I'm like,
Yeah.
that's interesting. But yeah, so
Well, listen, real quick before we get into the topics, folks. We did kind of learn because we've all been waiting to see what E3 is going to look like, the non E3, the Summer Games Fest, whatever heck you want to call it. Well, Ubisoft has announced it. What they're doing on the 10th of June, they're having their Ubisoft their forward event. So I would imagine then that the 10th is going to be the week of when people are doing their things. We haven't heard anything from Microsoft. I think it's a little early, but
it would be the day after. So because they did the same thing last time.
they did.
So
Okay.
it would be June 7th is already confirmed for Summer Game Fest.
Right.
I would heavily expect the 9th, hint, hint, will be the the Fan Fest / June showcase for Xbox. And then the 10th, just like last time, the day that's a Monday right after will be the Ubisoft thing. That we're hearing rumblings of the week preceding will be the IGN thing. Whatever they're doing, they announced a new IGN, summer thingy that they're doing.
I will not be.
So I don't know what it is. So same here. I just don't know what it is. So I'm fair about going to whatever. It's fine, but until I know what it is, how I would get into it, etc. I'm just gonna skip it this year, and then I'll worry about it next year once I understand what the heck they're doing, right? If it's even worth attending or not. So, but I've already booked my my flight out there, my hotel out there. So ready to go.
We got to talk. I was gonna say DMs, but we can't talk. We'll talk another way because I got to find out where you're staying and if it's gonna be very similar to last year. Because if it is, I'm gonna book it early. Find out what hotel because I'm definitely going this year. Whatever it is, I definitely got to get out there and do some boots on the ground coverage for Double Barrel Gaming. But of course, meet everyone in real life, and that's really the fun of it is actually meeting the people in person that you podcast with that you may never meet in real life. But guys, we got to get into this. Look, the world of gaming as we know it, especially when you talk about what's going on with Xbox, is changing. There is a handheld coming. That's a confirmed fact. Now, have they actually confirmed it? No, but based on what Phil Spencer has said, well, you put that together with Sarah Bond, who says that there is some new hardware reveals coming this fall. I guess you can put one and one together that, yes, there's probably going to be an Xbox handheld that is going to be exactly what I want because Phil Spencer said that's whatever Phil was saying in that Polygon interview is exactly what I want for my handheld. But I want to talk about, gentlemen, because they can't beat Sony at their own game, they need to change it. And in fact, they are changing it in a way where, and again, I'm gonna go first here to Kay Asante. Kay, there's been a lot of chatter. There's been a lot of talk, some private talk, some public talk. When I say people want a smaller ecosystem, what I have seen and what I've discussed with other people that have a bit shocked me is they want the old school ideology of consoles to be the box that plays these games, and these games are exclusive, and that's the only place that you can play these games, and we're not moving forward. Well, that's not good business. And again, I've already said my piece on what I think should never go to become third party, but we're not going to go down that ramp. What we're going to go down is to talk about this idea from people, they want a smaller ecosystem. That doesn't exist anymore, especially when you spend $100 billion over the course of 2 acquisitions. Sony, they have an old way of doing things, which is fine, which is perfectly fine. But even Sony is finding difficulty with getting people to buy games because hardware is selling, right? But that's not going to make you the money. Services and software are going to make you the money. And they're having trouble doing that. And obviously, if we've seen Microsoft try to go toe-to-toe with Sony, and when it comes to Xbox versus PlayStation, they're losing Xbox. And you know what? That's fine. They're going to find different ways to change the game. Let's talk about this idea of people actually pushing back on having more stores with more games available in the Xbox ecosystem potentially for the next console.
So, okay, I've heard this talk for a little bit, and I speak to the people in various degrees in both on socials and in DMs and whatnot. And I've been trying to understand, you know what I mean? Because like for example, when the whole idea of exclusivity became a footnote, when it became a question, at first I didn't understand because frankly, and maybe this is a little bit of backstory for me. Back in the day when they were cultivating that war, that recess, that fight with the kids, you know, mine's better than yours. Like I was the kid, like in the window looking. I wish I had one of them. I was a broke kid. You know, parents didn't get you a console until much later. You know, so for me, it wasn't like, oh well, Nintendo, what Genesis does. It was I just want one. It doesn't matter which one. You know what I mean? That's how it was. So because of that, I never built that. Oh, mine's better than yours kind of narrative. But over time, when all of this conversation started rolling, right? And people were like so adamant, and I'm like, I don't understand. And as we're talking to trusted individuals and people who you talk to on a daily basis and who you understand, who are genuine individuals who don't necessarily come out and just spit smoke, right? You have to understand where they're coming from. So I'm starting to understand, right? And honestly, I think the situation is somewhat similar. I have a feeling that this is not, and maybe that's where the smoke for me lies. This is not people being honest with their feelings. They are saying that, but there's something more behind it, right? And what do I mean by that? Folks advocating for why would Steam, why would Valve want to be on Xbox? Why would Epic Games want to be on Xbox? Itch.io, what is that anyway? You know what I mean? Like, why would that be the case? And even if they were on Xbox, you know, why would they want to help why would they want to help that console maker? It doesn't make any sense, right? And my first thought when all of this started brewing was, do you have $3 trillion in your pocket? If you don't, you're probably not in a position to understand the machinations of a $3 trillion person. You have $3 trillion to make resource moves, right? I'll keep it on Front Street. I won't go much further, but you heard Diddy is getting into some hot waters. He doesn't have $3 trillion. You know what I'm saying? When you get to a certain financial mental level, the law becomes a side project for you, and you start becoming a little bit high on your own supply, as they say. So I at least know that people with resources that far ahead may not think the way we do. You know what I mean? But everyone has been, the conversations that I've been having anyway, everyone has been so wound up in the, I don't understand why they would do that. I don't understand. So, and because I don't understand it, it's not happening, which I just laugh at because, buddy, until you have $2 trillion in your pocket, you have no capability of understanding why they do what they do and why it matters to them in the long run, you know? I feel like possibly it's back to that old console war mentality, which, let me be clear, I'm not saying, hey, if you feel like your ground is shifting beneath your feet, that you're wrong or that you're bad or something like that, right? I will give the smoke where the smoke belongs on this one, and that is to the console makers who have spent eons, if you will, cultivating this idea, this narrative that, oh, you know, you're with us, you're not with them, and they're better than you are, and we are better than, you know, that whole thing. I still remember the freaking Bandicoot standing in front of the building, holding the foghorn, literally blowing it and screaming into the wind, right? And that galvanized communities, right? And I have a feeling that all of that seems to be in jeopardy in some minds, and that's the reason why, like, people are taking the tack they are. But honestly, in reality, we all know it doesn't make any dollars, and that doesn't make any sense, right? Like this will bring about the hugest shift in gaming ever, and ultimately, it will lead to you, consumer, whether you're a PC consumer or a console gamer or whatnot, having the best of all worlds, right? Ultimately, this will be. I'm not saying this will be not much to do about nothing, because I'm sure they'll make some stupid moves. I'm sure they'll clutch defeat from the jaws of victory, as they do. That always happens. But in the long run, like, that's what happens here, right? Usually, and to your point early on when you were mentioning this, like, this is what we want. We want them to fail, or any of the companies to fail at the thing that they don't do well, because then they rely on their core competencies. The reason why PS5 and PS4 are releasing bangers is because they got smoked during the 360 gen. And they had to rely on what made them great, which is movies. So they started making movie games. And now they're completely successful, right? And then when they started smoking Microsoft, what did Microsoft do? They relied on their core competencies, and now there's services everywhere. You're getting game saves. You can play wherever you want. These are the things that they do when they get whooped in the market, right? I would contend that the problem with Sony these days is they haven't been whooped enough. So they're resting on their laurels. They're giving you multiplats and they're giving you remasters and remakes because they'll deal with it, right? If they get whooped once or twice, maybe they start going, hey man, we need to innovate, right? I have a feeling that this is like the fundamentals of all this is a fear of change, right? Because everyone has been so used to this. Everyone has been the narrative, the indoctrination has been like really steep to say, hey, come here, follow us, deal with us. We are your guys, and we will one day beat them at their own game. And now it looks like Microsoft is going, yeah, we don't want to beat them at their own game anymore. We realize we can't beat them at their own game, so we're going to change the game, right? Which for someone like me, who's never kind of taken the line, hook, line, and sinker, I'm just like, you do you, it'll be interesting. But if it doesn't work for me, I know how to step, right? But those of us who aren't that way get really offended and get really nervous and worry about, where their eventual gaming will land. So like my first instinct is to be like, get out of here. These people are ridiculous, but I'm trying to understand, you know what I mean? I'm trying to see what emotional thing is driving people to bet against their own best interest in this.
Well, I would even I'd take it add a little bit more context, and I think even Everborn would agree with this.
Sure.
What people have been playing this sport, it's been pick your team. Here's the sport. Here's the rules of the game. Been playing that for what, 3.5 decades, something like that.
Hey, now don't say sports. Paris Lily gonna come after you. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, but I do have to agree with Everborn on that standpoint. And not, it's interesting too, because like you just kind of look at everything. Like we treat now, it's so interesting to see like how politics works, at this age, and I'm not going to get into that, but just like people treat that like a sport. Like it's not even about what's my best interest, because I feel like when sides get together, most people agree, well, yeah, this is probably the thing that's going to work out for all of us, but but then they got to go choose their person, right? Yeah. And I think that's how it is, and we're just, I think humans are just wired to be very tribal and and we pick our teams, and that change, and that's why we have sports, right? So that we don't have to kill each other. That's like the outlet, right? So
isn't that funny though? We have sports, and sports inherently is a thing of change, because although the jerseys stay the same, the people wearing them always change.
Right, but people like to root for the jersey, and I think at the end of the day, people have chosen the jersey over the years. And this whole idea, and that's why you were asking that question, like why would somebody root against their own interests, and they'll rationalize it, but at the end of the day, they wanted to see their team, like their team is now loaded, right? The team they've been rooting for, that's been getting like, it's like me as a, for years, like I'm a Lions fan, right? My Lions finally got to.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know, like we blew it. But anyway, like for years and years, my Lions just got the teeth kicked in. We're known as like one of the worst organizations ever. What if like last year came and they go, you know what, we're not playing the sport anymore. We're going to go over and create a new sport. And everybody who's been like waiting for that win just kind of goes like, hey, we've been waiting for you to build up this. And I think that's really what's happened. I think people wanted another round of the sport, and it's not going to happen. And Phil's now said it about 4 or 5 times over the last year, that thing that you're waiting for, we're not playing it anymore. And it goes bigger than it. They're thinking much bigger picture. But anyways, I should kick it back over to you. I want to just
no. I agree. I completely agree with you. And I actually will pose a question. Isn't it interesting though? And much like the analogy we were just making about the sports teams and how I said the although the jersey stays the same, the people keep changing. People are so convinced that Nintendo, they last forever. Like the people that make those decisions are now 300 years old and they'll never change, right? Sony lasts forever, right? The people, like, even though Jim has taken his retirement, he's on the phone right now with his feet up going, no, they get no games, right?
There's going to be
Although-
4 heads of PlayStation for Phil Spencer's, at least 4 heads of PlayStation, for the tenure of Phil.
Mhm.
Yes.
4 heads of
different
PlayStation.
leadership, different
Yes,
strategies, different
exactly.
environments.
It's exactly like Square,
Yeah.
right? People are still on the picket sign going, Square, put your games everywhere. They can't say it, but they're like, we already are. Like, it's just happening. It is happening. You're crying about last week's battle. Next week, this will be a nothing burger, right? I honestly feel that that's the same thing when it comes to all these competitors. I am waiting, and don't sloth me because I don't have any proof. I am waiting on the day when Sony just comes out and there's no asterisk, there's no MLB made us do it, no Disney made us do it. Here's some Xbox games from PlayStation. I'm waiting for that day for people to just like completely lose the thread or go, well, now we can have an actual honest conversation because they're doing it. You know what I mean? Like, it is all going to happen.
You know what's interesting with that particular right? Okay, so again, I don't want to go too far off the path.
Sure,
but
absolutely.
I have to respond to what Kay said. Then we're going to bring in Hargeet, and then we'll go right over to One Bad Mother. You know what's interesting to that point? Xbox did it first. 4 games are going over. 2 have not sold well. We talked about that yesterday. They're low sales. It's understood. Okay. The one that I think the outlier for whether or not this is a failed experiment or not is going to be Sea of Thieves and Grounded. Those are gas games. Those are multiplayer games. Those are 2 types of games that Sony doesn't have. They don't have a lot of multiplayer games. I understand Helldivers, but even their own people aren't supporting that game. More than 60% that's coming off PC. It's actually closer to 70%. So PC is supporting it, which is why you're going to see more day and date.
Yep.
But
And Boom, I would add, for the ones that are playing it on PlayStation, I bet they're like you, Xbox primary.
they're all Xbox
have a
people.
PlayStation and play that game on PlayStation.
There's
So
no
you're an
doubt.
Xbox dude on PlayStation.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if the Xbox, if you will, are the ones playing this on PlayStation. But here's an interesting theory, though, Kay, to your point, and I'd like to hear your rebuttal. We have seen Microsoft be ahead of the curve, right, folks? Like we've seen them be ahead of the curve, and when they get there, people are throwing the virtual tomatoes, right? But Kay just said something pretty interesting, and again, this is a complete ginormous hypothetical. Let's just say for shits and giggles that at the end of the year, come the holiday, they announce that Spider-Man 2018 and Miles Morales are going to launch on Xbox. All right, let's just say again, is it likely? Probably not. But just for conversation, if that did happen, we would not have the same virtual tomatoes. People would be cheering. The PlayStation players would be cheering, right? Oh, see all those Xbox, they're buying Spider-Man, we win. All of the gaming media would be, hey, this is the greatest, Sony making those moves. Oh my God, that's so brilliant. But when Microsoft, and the way it's been described by many people is when Xbox does it bad, when Sony does it good. I know I'm not making that up. Kay, what is your rebuttal to that?
Look, a year ago, remember where you were a year ago? Just think back to that. Just a simple year ago. If I told you that Microsoft, and I'm not saying about any of the multi-plats that eventually became first party, no, because to me, those don't count, right? All of them were multi-plats at some point during their development cycle. Well, a year ago, if I put you in, if I went to the DMs and went, bro, I hear Microsoft has a dev kit and they're literally porting Sea of Thieves to PlayStation, you would tell me I was smoking something bubonic and you'd ask me where I bought it from. Like, it was impossible, right? Because they've been incubating this thing for a while. Like, they just have. But at that time, a year ago, you were just like, hell no, what the hell? That's just not possible. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Like, mark our words. We are carnival barkers, sure, but just keep an eye out, because the people who you think have always been who they were, yeah, their jerseys are the same, but they're different people in those seats. There are different mindsets in them seats, right? Microsoft isn't trying to play those same games anymore. Mark my words, they're turning competitors to partners, right? And you have Sony out there saying, we ain't making enough money. You know, the adults in the room show up and they go, they're creative and smart, but they ain't making no dollars and no cents. And where are the dollars coming from? They're coming from new players, new markets. You can justify it any way you want, but a year, 2 years, who knows from now, when you hear old Sony like locked down, you know, now coming to the other platform and there are no asterisks, because you know what's going to happen. They put Spider-Man, you'll go, Disney made them do it. You put MLB, they'll say, oh, MLB made them do it. At some point, the asterisk will be gone. And then what you said. It's a world we live in. And we need to understand that your feelings aren't the main reason. That is not their metric of success. Their metric of success is cha-ching, and there's a lot to be made.
Well, I mean, listen, Hiroki Totoki mentioned it. People said, no, he didn't mean platforms. He meant PC. Then it was reiterated that they want to do PC and platforms. People still poo-pooed it. They're obviously, he has officially taken over the head of PlayStation while retaining his important job for SIE, Sony Interactive Entertainment, as the money man, if you will. I would imagine that you're going to start to see some incredible changes in the next couple of months. He's not going to leave money on the table. What does that mean? I don't know.
Boom, real quick. Imagine a year from now, Marathon releases, and it's like 4-1 PlayStation to Xbox, or Xbox to PlayStation, I should say. Just like Helldivers is now. Do you really think that money man will go, nah, man, we're not going to put that on their brand? Come on. Like, that would be hilarious. I'm sorry. Please continue.
No, it would be. Listen, again, look, Sony, whatever Sony is going to do, it's probably going to be the one of the last ones. They're going to try and hold on. Well, at least while Jim was there, they were holding on to the old way of Sony doing things.
Yeah.
With Hiroki Totoki now in charge, and they are currently actively looking for his successor, whoever that's going to be. I personally think that is going to be internal. I think that is going to be from Sony in Japan, but that's my speculation, just based on how things worked out in their last couple of heads of state. And obviously, Jim Ryan, you can say whatever you want about him. I believe he was asked to leave, whether he was fired or he was asked to resign. I don't know. Maybe he'll write a book one day, but things didn't work out. Let's just say that. But Hargeet, look, we're going to get to why on the second half of the show we all feel that Microsoft is at least 10 years ahead currently of PlayStation and Nintendo. And they are. We're going to get to that. But I want to get to this first conversation that we're having with the industry changing and Microsoft at the forefront of it. There are a lot of people that don't like change. I get it. I'm one of them. I was a very heavy physical guy, Hargeet. And so my brother was like, he browbeat me, dude, you and these discs, bro, you gotta go digital. And sooner or later, I'm like, yeah, I'm running out of space and it's just ridiculous. I got a storage full of stuff. I went digital. Now I didn't go digital fully. Xbox is all digital, except unless it's a collector's edition. But even like for me, as because I'm old school, like I'm the old man in the room. I want certain games on a certain platform, and I don't expect to see them anywhere else. That's just me. I understand my shortcomings. It's not a problem, right? Halo, Gears, Forza, I don't think they need to go anywhere but where they are currently, and that is PC and that is Xbox. Now, I don't have control over that. But I do, again, I've publicly spoken about it. My question to you, Hargeet, is how come this change with potentially getting the Steam store and Epic Games as actual apps in your next Xbox? How is and why is that a problem for some people? Because I think that is absolutely brilliant. And again, folks, please don't throw the tomatoes at me. I'm just using myself as a test case. I am non-PC guy. Even if I was given a $5,000 rig with a 4090, I would use it to make content, and that would be it. I would not play games. I don't enjoy sitting in the chair I'm in right now in front of the screen that I'm in, even if it's a wide screen, playing that. I bought a very expensive TV. I want to sit on my couch. That's where I want to play. But here's the difference. Now, I know that there's, first of all, we got almost 600 people here. There are going to be a lot of people here that have the same ideology as me. They're not PC people. But if you could go and with the convenience of your Xbox, simply hit an app on your Xbox and buy a Steam game that you could play, I have now, or you have now become a customer for Gabe Newell that you weren't before. And he's not going to look money and like, nah, I don't want that extra money. I'm rich enough as it is. Hargeet, can we get to the bottom of this?
Sure. Though I think first I need to do a little bit of a Jim Ryan, little eulogy here. We had some moments with Jim. I don't know if we can get this like up in the big area, but we had some moments with Jim. I'll take myself out of it.
I think we can bring it up full screen. Let's see. There he is.
Boy.
Hey!
So we had some moments with Jim, and then we had some other moments with Jim. And let me fix that. It's like this. We believe in generations. We had some good times. We had some bad times with crying, lying, flying. Whatever. Jim Ryan. He did some great things, and then he did some not so great things. And then, he would laugh about it, and we would just sit there and say, what the heck is he laughing about? But then, sadly, he has to go, and here lies Jim Ryan.
Holy.
That is some talent right there.
Side to the game, but this is great. This is great.
Oh my God, that is great, Hargeet. All the ponies lined up for his eulogy. I love it. That's great.
So he's obviously not dead. I'm just joking, guys. But his reign is now over. As of last week, he left, and now it's Hiroki Togi's turn. So we'll see where that shifts, right? So, okay, so let's take that aside, and let's look at the Xbox side of things and why this is somehow a big deal. I don't know why it would be a big deal. Look, EA has been doing this for quite a few years, where I can go to my PC and I can subscribe to EA Access or EA Play, whatever it's called now. And I have that on my Xbox, and it just kind of works. So why is that a problem? I can do the same with Ubisoft Plus. I'm doing it today. I pay for Ubisoft Plus on my PC. I go to my Xbox, and lo and behold, there are my games. So they've somehow worked out a deal where Xbox is happy and Ubisoft is happy, and they get my money, and I get to play my games on either platform.
And you don't have to buy it twice.
And I don't buy it twice. I just have the game, right? Now, for those who think that there's nothing in it for Xbox when you get something on their store, that's not true, right? If I go to Amazon today, can I get a Steam code? Yes, I can. Do you think Amazon is doing that out of charity? They're just doing that to be so nice to Steam? No, they get a cut.
They get a cut.
They get a cut.
Yep.
Okay, that's how that works. And what they're doing is they're doing the retail capture, right? That part of it. And for that, they get a cut. Okay? So Steam has to pay them. It's the same with I go to CD Keys or wherever I go to get a code. There's a cut. They're getting their cut. Those stores aren't doing it for free. So why would that be different with Xbox? If you want to connect it to the Microsoft store, fine. You want to get the game there? Fine. Microsoft will get a cut. So they're getting revenue. They're also getting games from a different platform onto their system. What's the downside? They don't get the full cut. But so what? You get the convenience. And for that, they get you as a customer. That's pretty important to them. Why is this a problem? So I don't know how we get to these points of like, this is too much. It's not going to happen. Like when he says itch and Epic, you should take that as like they're in deep negotiations
done.
And they're this close to done.
Yep.
Okay. Yes, it could fall apart, but I doubt it.
That man moves mountains with his words.
You know,
you're not the first person.
You're not the first person to say that, Hargeet. As a matter of fact, I've heard that from quite a few prominent people. And everyone, people like to make fun of Phil because he says things like, we want to get to 3 billion gamers. Remember, he was clowned for that. But Kay, actually, you said this in one of our conversations. There is no way this dude makes mention of those by name and
So
doesn't
let me put the analogy out there.
Okay.
If you guys who watch commercials, do you hear that thing? We are better than the leading brand.
Yes.
They say we are better than the leading brand because they have to prove it. If they don't, they could be sued for libel. Right? It's a very, very fine line that they walk. And I know it's a different conversation, but follow me here. If he is mentioning them by name, it is because there is smoke and probably a kindle of fire there already.
Yeah.
A man who speaks, a C-class executive who speaks at that level can say the wrong thing. I don't know if you've heard Elon recently, can say the wrong thing. And then, you know, he's got regulatory bodies at his door, right? He doesn't just like you and me schmucks on the internet going, well, I wish we had this. No, he says that specifically. Even the shirts he wears, the freaking stuff on his counter are all super calculated because if it's not, he could get himself into deep doo-doo. So when he mentions a name, oh boy, you better take that one to the bank. Just say,
it is a totally different.
Fun.
Yeah, what he says is it has a whole different meaning today, especially post ABK versus anything he would have said like 2-5 years ago. The position that he has in the company, the you know, just the level of you know, spotlight that's on him and everything he says is now much higher. He now runs the 3rd largest division in the largest company in the world, and that has a whole different context than when you're just running the little toy that's in the basement, right? Or Microsoft, it was like the thing that Microsoft investors really didn't care about. Now they do, right? And that's the one thing we kind of heard right off the bat is as soon as they closed ABK is like now the investors are going to care how the gaming division's doing. Before they used to kind of like didn't have any impact. Now it will. And you know, the same thing with it was kind of interesting because like Satya even mentioned when he was talking on the investor call, the last call, and basically said, hey, they had their highest number of users on the Xbox console, and people were like, oh, he's just saying that it's like all hype stuff. It's like, no, you're not allowed to just hype stuff up and make stuff up when you're in that position and you're talking to those people, right? So yeah, I agree with you. And I think that, you know, we've seen this now for years too. It's even when he was in the lower positions, when he was talking about things that usually meant there was something kind of going on in regards to it. A lot of times, for whatever reason, that he likes to set the table, kind of foreshadow. At this point, we know, like, and he even told Jez, like Jez mentioned that a couple months ago, talking about the article that he did with Phil, and said that, you know, Phil told him, and I don't remember if he included this in the actual article or not, or if it was just kind of off the cuff, but he said Phil's like told him that I'm not just saying these things, you know, just like these are not just like you know, first top of mind things that are coming into my mind as I'm talking to you. He's placing these things that he was talking about there for a reason, and he was saying in that particular interview, oh, wouldn't it be nice if you could just pull up, you know, pull up a device and your whole you could stream your whole library, right? And he kept talking about crossplay a lot. He kept talking about, you know, hey, this is something that the dual entitlement thing, this was something we started a long time ago, and, you know, we really didn't do enough with it. But like, the reason he's bringing these things up was really sort of just setting the table for the things that are changing. Where I think I would like not push back a lot, but maybe add a little more context to what you're saying, because you mentioned that, you know, Microsoft can't compete with Sony, and that's one of the reasons.
Yeah, I was going to get into that one.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Hargy.
Yeah, so one of the things I want to just clarify is that Xbox 100% can compete with Sony, but they won't, because
when Phil
tried to do it,
right?
Exactly. Because when Phil tried to go get games, third-party games, Square Enix's Shadow of the Tomb Raider, one of the Tomb Raiders, right? He got lambasted.
Rise of the Tomb Raider is what it was.
Not by the PlayStation side. He got lambasted by the Xbox media. And once that happened, like, what do you do? How do you respond to that? Well, his answer is like, I'm never going to do that again.
Yep.
Right. If they wanted to, if it was Peter Moore, it's like, I don't care what you say. If there's a game that's available, I'm taking it. 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 I've got bank. I'm taking it. Right. If you had that kind of mentality, they could 100% bring it to PlayStation, which is what Peter Moore did, right? He came in, and that 360 was neck and neck with the PlayStation. right? It totally did compete. And the mindshare,
Even
it
with the
was
red ring of
Xbox.
death, which was crazy.
Yeah, it was Xbox. Mindshare was Xbox that gen,
Yep.
right? And that's what you have to do. Why? Because he just took games. Even if they were only a year exclusive, it just changed the landscape. And he took the big games, Mass Effect, BioShock, Oblivion. I could go on. So Gears of War was just, it was an epic game. And they made it an exclusive, right? That's how it is. He just went total, like, after everything. Phil doesn't want to do that.
Remember, Hargy, they had Gears of War. There was literally a disc you could put on a PlayStation and play it, and they went, "Nah, homie, that's dust."
No, we're
would never
turning that off.
happen now.
Exactly. Exactly. No, Phil plays the nice guy, but if they wanted to do it, they 100%. They have the cash, they have the cachet, they have the power to do it. They could absolutely do it. They're not going to. They won't. But they could absolutely compete and demolish PlayStation, right? And by the way, that was what Bill Gates wanted.
Yeah.
That was the whole point of this whole experiment, was to crush PlayStation, to crush Sony. They weren't taking over Windows. That was the whole thing, right? So could they do it? Yes. They're too nice. And I don't know if the regulators would let them continue down the path of killing them, but if they wanted to, they would.
So, Hargy,
100% they could
real
do it.
quick, real quick, because you brought up regulators, I have a question. I have a theory that I've been floating, and there I see folks in the chat talking about, oh, they'd never do this and they'd never do that. So I think you would be, maybe I'm wrong. You'd be able
They're right.
to disabuse me of my notions. Imagine if this world we're talking about, and y'all have heard me talk about it before,
Yep.
is a world where there's one ecosystem. There's no more console in the way that you know it today. There is a console, but it's one piece of software that runs on everything. And it's Windows 12. Let's just say as an example, it's Windows 12. And Windows 12 will scale depending on where you are. You buy a DIY, you can put a desktop on it. If it's on a 7-inch screen, it auto boots to an Xbox UI. In that world where you have that one piece of operating system that manages it all, it's not a question at that point of, oh, can we get them to put their stores on? Now it becomes a regulatory duty to do so in order to avoid monopolistic tendencies. Because if you own all of Windows, which you do, and then you put your own store front, which is what Gabe was going after them for last time with Windows 8, right? Oh, they put their store on front. Nobody else can compete. Now they have a duty, if they do this, to give you the option of, here's Epic, here's itch.io, here's Steam. Why? Because if we don't do that, now we're looking like a bunch of haters that are stopping and foreclosing on other rivals.
Well, and they were telling the regulators even before they got deep into the trial. Like, I think Tim Stewart put out a statement early on, basically saying, remember that one self-serving thing? Because I remember like Hogue kind of broke it down and said, this is so self-serving, it doesn't mean anything. But it was like, it was really them really people got to understand, like, what they're doing. This is a lot of gamesmanship, right? Like you're trying to navigate this game. And yeah, when this thing started for Microsoft and Xbox at that, over 20 years ago, it was Sony that was the reason the whole thing got greenlit. Remember that whole Thanksgiving, or not though? Yeah, what was it? The Valentine's Day massacre. Remember that whole thing? And basically it was, they're ready to kind of just shut down the whole project. Bill Gates was angry because originally he thought this was going to be a machine running on Windows. Like Ed Freeze was getting yelled at, and then somebody said, well, what about Sony? And that's the reason this thing started, because they thought Sony was going to eat their lunch, the Windows lunch. Right now, you fast forward 20 years and that didn't really happen. Sony is dominating a segment of console, but they didn't end up becoming the final boss when it comes to Windows. What Microsoft's looking at today is not, I think when they look at Sony, they don't look at them as a final boss at all. In fact, I agree with Kay when he says turning, former enemies into partners, or like adversaries into partners. They are not standing in with what they're aiming for, with where the industry is going, Sony is not really an obstacle to all of that. Really, I mean, not in a major way. Like they present some smaller issues, but they're not somebody that Microsoft wants to knock out. Number one, them standing up and dominating the way that they are just allows Microsoft to have more flexibility when it comes to the regulatory process. And they will be buying again. I don't know when that will be, because obviously I think in this down market, they don't want to probably get in there and buy a big company and lay off a bunch of people this year. I mean, that's not something I expect to happen in the next year, or maybe even next year either, but eventually they will buy again. They've already, Satya Nadella has foreshadowed again, just take that to the bank at that point. They foreshadowed that they needed more in Japan. We already know from stuff that leaked that, that Sega was all but, it was right there before ABK happened. So we know that there is, for regulatory purposes, it makes sense now that you've dealt with the regulators, you set the guardrails, and as long as Sony is standing strong, and you make good on your promises when it comes to cloud, you now have more flexibility. And we can't just think that they're only going to get challenged on acquisitions. The other aspect of it is just about everything else, just like you mentioned, Kay, because somebody could turn around and basically say, well, aren't you a monopoly now because everything is running on Windows, and which is your platform, and you seem to have now a hand in every single thing that's happening. Like you are now sitting atop of the entire industry. And I think that is kind of their game plan. It really is not about, people think this is Sony versus Xbox. It's not. It's about, there's teams right now fighting this regulatory battle, and it's open ecosystems versus walled gardens, and they're on team let's tear down the wall, winter's coming. Right, that's and so for them to do that on one side of things, and then just continue to try to dominate in this walled garden is really working against their long-term big picture goals. And so, when it comes to like opening up the ecosystem, even when it comes to porting over these games, I know like you guys were talking about whether this was a mistake, or whether we'll look back on some of these 4 games as, something that we can measure in the short term. I look at that as, if 2 people are playing chess and somebody moves out a pawn, you don't just jump up and go, oh my God, like that is the pawn move, right? That is not a major, that is like hardly even setting the board at this point. And I think that's kind of what they're doing with a lot of these things. And yeah, when you do launch a open platform, or you start to work with OEMs and they start launching platforms, and the Xbox, mode is a best way to play on these things, and you can easily access Sony games through Steam. There's going to be more conversations, I think, around a lot of this stuff. And so if you're playing it 2 different ways, you're kind of working against your long-term goals, right? So I think that's kind of like, when I look at the competition thing, and even the moves they're making, this is Sony staying strong, and that is, again, why you got to ask yourself, why would Phil repeat 4 or 5 times in the last 12 months? Sony won that. They're strong. Like, we can't do anything. We're helpless against them. Like all these things, when you like looking at
acquire more.
You're
Again,
looking at
so,
Hargy, jump in.
Go ahead.
So one of the other things that's interesting here, kind of taking what you said, Asante, is, well, could Sony do the same thing? Could PlayStation do the same thing and bring the other stores over? They could. They could do that too. And there's nothing stopping that. What they'd have to figure out is how to make those games work, right? So Steam Deck is a great example of a different OS, very similar. It's Linux versus BSD, right? That runs Proton, to bring the Windows games over, and so it doesn't always work, but it works a lot of times.
Yeah,
90%. So you could do something
damn
similar,
good,
right? So so you could do something similar, and there is a sort of initiative to get BSD to have Proton. Right? Maybe Sony would have to fund finishing it and saying, okay, well, we will make this a full-fledged thing that we will support. Fair enough, right? So it's something they could do, right? So, and then say, yeah, let's talk to Epic. Let's talk to to Steam, and let's get those libraries on our system as well. And we would do the same thing if people buy the game through us, and we know they've done this before. Hey, you bought these microtransactions on Fortnite on iOS. Oh, no, you owe us those profits on this side, right? So they have all sorts of weird contracts. I'm sure they'll work out something, right? I don't know if Gabe will like it or not, though. That'll be a whole other story, right? But they could do this. They could absolutely do this. And if like the next topic we have, Microsoft just kind of leads into where things need to end up, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes they get lambasted for it, and sometimes it works out, right?
Most of the time, they get all the arrows, and then others show
up.
All
that is kind of sad, right? And but
so many times.
But things almost always they end up where Microsoft
where exactly they said it would go. Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
So so this could be another thing. I kind of like this idea of like I buy the game wherever I want, and I can just play my game, right? It doesn't matter. I buy the hardware I want, and it looks like an Xbox. That's fantastic.
I'm a habitual double dipper. It's time to let the double dipping stop. Ridiculousness. Come on,
right? So it'd be fantastic if this works out. But that like as far as the competition piece of it, there's nothing stopping PlayStation from doing the same bloody thing. They can go and get the same contract with Epic and say, hey, we're going to bring Epic over, just like EA did eventually get onto PlayStation as well, right? And Ubisoft, I'm sure, will eventually get there as well. So you can get your Ubisoft Plus wherever you want, and it'll show up on PlayStation as well, right? They'll work out the numbers, work out how the finances work. That's the big part of it. It's just the logistics. The technology works. There's no problem. Yeah. It's the logistics of who gets what money, right? Mm-hmm. So they'll have to just work that piece out. And if it's Epic, I'm sure like they're a pretty big part of this thing. Is funny. I don't know if you saw this, like of 2023 top 10 games for each platform.
We're going to talk about it tomorrow.
Fortnite,
yeah, it's
number one
across the board. All platforms.
Yeah, and platforms. PlayStation had zero of their games in their top 10. Zero. Yeah. 2 Xbox games were there, but 0 of their games. Starfield made it in the top 10 in on
number
Xbox.
8 for Xbox. Yeah.
So and of course Nintendo, their games obviously dominate on their platform. They're great, but yeah. So either way, looking at Fortnite, I think Epic, they'll probably work something so they can get that store on there. They could get that store onto PlayStation. So I don't see that being something where they eventually have some sort of monopolistic headache here. As far as should PlayStation look at this and say, do we need to keep using our BSD based OS and move over to Windows? Now that would be very interesting, right? But I mean, look, that's a question for them if they like it or not, right? It's really do you want to keep investing or do you want to just take advantage of what's out there, right? Yeah. Like you could look at all these other guys, Asus and Lenovo making the Legion Go and then Aya Neo and all, right? With all those guys are just saying, let's just stay Windows and let's use it, right? If they have a mode where it looks like a freaking console and you say, you know what, you can change that UI to whatever you want and make it look like PlayStation. I mean, Windows does that, right? It gives you that opportunity. You can do whatever you want. So they could do that. And then they just get all the benefits of having its one code base. And your game is the same everywhere.
Again, this is where we're going to lead into. This is where we're going to lead Hargeet into the question of why I believe, and I'm not the only one. Again, this is not console warrior. This is not being facetious. This is being straight up honest. You heard what Hargeet said. You've heard what Keasante's had to say so far. We're going to get OBM in a second. I do want to catch up on super chats, but perfect example of where the market is going, right? And why Xbox has a lead. Now, Sony releases the PlayStation Portal, right? It's a nice machine. I've used it. The screen is quite impressive. I'm not a fan of the controller. It's too light for me. There's no substance to it, right? It's a simple piece of hardware. It streams your stuff. Not what I would buy. That's why I didn't buy it. $200, not a bad price. It is selling for them great. But here's the thing. As a streaming device, it's good, but that's not what the people want. That's not what people are asking for. That's why they have the Steam Deck. That's why they have the Legion Go. That's why they have the Asus. I have one. But the difference is that okay. So, and OBM, I want to bring you in. Just want to just finish this point before I forget it. This is one of the main reasons why Xbox is ahead, because when Xbox's handheld potentially comes out, and again, completely guesstimation here, maybe it comes out this fall, maybe it comes out in 2025. If they're talking about a hardware reveal this June, and Phil is already talking about what he wants in his handheld and how the UI there needs to work, that means that it's close. How close? I couldn't tell you, because I'm not in on the dev team. But they release that piece of hardware that is going to, I'm not saying it's going to make it inadequate in any way, but you're talking about a streaming device versus something you can download games onto. That's what the people are asking for. That's one of many reasons why Xbox is 10 years ahead. Forget about AI. I mean, that's another whole conversation. We just saw that story from The Verge about that chat bot thingamajig that's on the way for Xbox. People are like, oh no, I don't want that. It's happening, folks. AI is going to be a big part of it. But one bad mother, let's get your final take on, of the first opening topic before we get into the 10-year or the decade ahead of the other two.
Yeah, and I'll try to be quick on this because I did jump in a couple times already.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, just a couple more things, to add to that, because I was talking about the bigger picture. The one thing that I do think that a lot of people have lost sight of is that with with ABK now, where Microsoft Gaming sits, they're going to be, I believe this year they're going to be number 2 in terms of content and services revenue. Like we look like, I know that there's an article that came out that said Microsoft spent what, 100 billion to go from third to third. That is not true. And the 100 billion they spent did leap them past a few of the people that were in front of them in terms of the content and services, which is where all the revenue, and that is really the whole point of why people sell the hardware to begin with. I always find it interesting that we that's always kind of lumped together, because the hardware is usually a loss leader. It's not something they make money on. It's like a necessary evil to get you to buy software and services. And so when you're looking at like where they are, like sitting on top of everything right now, it is like they are sitting on top of the gaming industry with content and services over top of mobile, with the biggest mobile game, and also the opportunity to continue to expand that now with what they took over from ABK. They sit atop of PC gaming with BattleNet, with WoW, and Call of Duty sits across everything, really across all 3 of those platforms. And like we just looked at that list, the games that people are playing, they own a couple of those black hole games now, right? Like, so if that's just where everybody keeps trending towards the big popular black hole games that just will never die, they'll just keep growing and sucking everything else into their vortex. They own a few of those and have opportunity to go even further with some of the other IPs they have. So like, when we get into the whole conversation of Sony versus Microsoft, I just think that conversation is, from Microsoft's level, is not really a big focus. They're worried about right now Apple. They're worried about taking down those walls. And if Sony follows the Microsoft's footsteps and also opens up their hardware, that's basically winning the console war for Microsoft. That's exactly what they would want, right? Because what you want right now is, and what I feel like is happening over the last year even, is what they're doing is just putting bricks down, trying to open people's minds, having these conversations. Sure, tag us in the media, whatever, but at least you're having the conversations. And as things start to come out and you start to see things unfold more and more, it'll be like, oh, okay, well, maybe they were onto something here, right? And I think that's what we're kind of seeing. And you have to start to it starts really with the mind share. It starts with like the people's approach to it. I don't really think like the money hat thing has anything to do with the media anymore. I read at this point, I think they're going to get resistance no matter what, especially as they move into the next phase, which is going to be AI. And a lot of that stuff is going to be very controversial for a lot of different reasons. So that's not going to go away. But just like I was saying before, just these are just initial early moves, and people are really trying to focus in on minor moves that are like not even setups at this point. It's just kind of like they're just building the board right now. So but I guess what I'm going to do now, Boom, is I'm going to kick it back to you so you can take it to the next topic, because I talked a lot of in between
listen,
everybody else.
that's what we're here for. This is a conversational podcast, and I love the direction we're going. But before we get to the next topic, folks, I do want to catch up with some super chats. We have a gifted double barrel gaming membership comes the way of Nino Vestek. Brother, thank you so much for the continued support and generosity. The first super chat of the day comes the way of RC Polygons, who drops a very generous $10 super chat and says, just wait until the next publisher acquisition that they will continue to push the vision of Phil. Games everywhere. They buy Take-Two will be just like ABK. Most games will be multi-platform. Yeah, I think everything would be multi-platform, because why close the doors when you can, keep it as it is? 2K is a multi-plat, publisher, and you know what? You never know. I mean, it would be pretty crazy if you could say you own Bethesda, which of course is the makers of, well, whatever your favorite RPG is, Call of Duty maker Activision, and then the owners and makers of Grand Theft Auto. I think the world would implode, but that's very interesting.
Yeah, I think that might be a hard one to push through the regular.
Potentially, yeah.
And you forget Minecraft. But continue.
And Minecraft, yeah.
But why would it be? I guess if they're putting it everywhere, it's really a question of revenue and profits at that point, right?
Yes, it would be.
I am surprised Game Pass wasn't challenged more, because I think what people are going to find out right now, and it's interesting how well they've been downplaying Game Pass. And I even wonder if they're, because I feel fully that Game Pass is still, when it comes to the core gamer, when it comes to the segment that's really us people that are, listening to this podcast, everybody sitting here, that is really the big play. It's not about getting 30% of everything on your store. And I would even venture to bet that 30% number is probably going to come down, because there's going to be more competition when these walls come down. And how are you going to keep people, when Epic has already been training people to go directly to them, and why not, all the new gamers, all the Gen Zs, they don't care about Xbox or PlayStation. When they see a streamer who says, they're playing Fortnite, they're just going to go wherever they see, wherever the main place for Fortnite is. So I think that those 30% numbers of these individual sales is going to continue to become less and less a piece of the pie. And even as you look at those Vortex games, sucking up everything, and the way they're trending and they're eating it, if the amount of consumers that buy those types of games isn't really expanding, and more of their hours are being spent in these handful of older games, and there's more competition coming in at the same time, you're just more people fighting over a smaller and smaller pie. I don't see that really, owning that storefront is probably not as big a thing as people make it out to be. I think Microsoft would rather be Game Pass as the complement to everything. Hey, you want to just play, you want to go to the Epic Store, you can go there and you subscribe to Game Pass. You want to go buy on Steam, go to Steam and have a Game Pass sub. Like a Game Pass sub comes with every ecosystem. I think that is really how they're not looking to own the movie theaters. They're basically looking to be just a Netflix. Like everybody has that, even if you go to the movies, right? Yeah. So I think that's kind of more going to be their bigger play long term. And I don't even and so for doing that, they're really just going to be focused more on just really growing the industry overall. It's not just going to be about just these little segments. And that's kind of the balance. It's like you're not just fighting over the pie. You need to now figure out how to move the pie or grow it bigger. And I guess that's the next topic. So I'll let you back.
Yeah, no, we absolutely will. Yuzu Ichikawa drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, "You're forgetting Final Fantasy 16 that 14. Has been placed 14. Okay, 14 right? Yeah. Has been on PlayStation for 10 years. Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, it's been a big money maker for them. I mean, a huge money maker for Square, and the fact that was exclusive to PlayStation was a really, really big deal. Thankfully, well, I mean, again, not for me per se.
Just came out, right? It was coming out.
It did. Xbox. I think it officially launched, right? Like it wasn't beta, but I'm pretty sure that it officially launched. So anyone that's playing it, listen, that's awesome.
Pro tip for people playing it: I know they're giving you a perk. Don't use that perk. Play it as much as you can, free to play style, until the end. Because the minute that perk is used and is finished, you're expected to pay. If you wait and use it very last, then you get the whole benefit of the free to play version, and then you get that thing. Pro tip.
Great pro tip there. That's excellent. That's excellent. FBI agent dropped a very generous $2 super chat and says, "What has Phil done? Game Pass stalled and Xbox third plate." FBI agent, brother, we appreciate you here. That's being quite disingenuous. Yes, they're in third place, no doubt about it. That's with console sales. This whole thing with the console sales thing is old news. Yes, it's a metric. Yes, it counts. Yes, Sony continues to run to the top of the biggest building in New York City to let everyone know that they have sold 50 million consoles. That's awesome.
That they make no money on, by the way.
But they're not making money on those things. And they're going to have a pro that's going to come out. They're going to lose even more money.
So from a business perspective, we're talking about what's real and what's happening, right? And as far as Microsoft, they're doing great with their gaming business. I can see it from a different perspective of saying, if I bought the console, what did I get, right?
Right.
And if I'm just looking at it from that lens, look, as far as, and I'll change that to like the third place. They also haven't released any big exclusives. They've released a lot of games. They bought a bunch of studios, but they were contractually obligated to put those games everywhere, including exclusives to PlayStation, right? So it may have felt a certain way, but look, their roadmap is in front of you. You have it. You don't have it for the other two platforms. I'm just saying, right now, you don't really have a big roadmap of games from either PlayStation or Nintendo, to be fair. You do have one from Xbox. If none of those are interesting to you, well, then, yeah, you're probably better off on the other platforms. But and like looking at them from a business perspective, they did a lot of good things. And Phil's first decision was to go buy Minecraft. And you can't tell me that didn't work out big time.
Well, like, even from a consumer standpoint, like I always like I have to like ask people to step back a little bit when they talk about from the consumer standpoint, like what are we getting out of this? It's like, well, if you really look at,
I like Game Pass.
Yeah, I like Game Pass a lot. Yeah,
when you look at the platform fundamentally, like I feel like we take for granted now. Right. Game Pass is like insane. I don't know if people understand how insane it is that you're getting all these, the number of day one things you get loaded in there. And if that's not for you, great. But then even when you start looking at the bigger third party, developers and publishers, the support this generation is much better than it was last generation. The only things left right now in terms of the big exclusives that aren't coming over is Final Fantasy and the Genshin, and we know Final Fantasy is on a timer and is eventually going to be over there, and so you're going to be left with just working out that one last big developer. So everything from support to the hardware quality to the services, like the fundamentals of the platform have never really been better. It's just that the optics, the narratives, because you're playing the sport. If you're playing the sport, I get it. Yeah, you spent $100 billion and you didn't win, but that's not why most people buy a console.
Yeah.
And it's not why
that 100 billion. Well, at least the ABK one was not intended to change that piece of it. These are massive games that were always going to be multi-plat. There might be some minor ones here and there that are going to be exclusive, but they're not going to take Overwatch away from PlayStation. In fact, I think they're going to bring it to Switch. I Call of Duty, is going everywhere, right? They've already signed contracts.
Just make Geometry Wars as great as it can be. That's all I say.
Yeah, right. but that's the thing, and I think if they make a new Spyro, or if they make a new Crash, I would expect that to go everywhere too. I don't think this was a play for everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And if they get World of Warcraft, right? If there's a big expansion coming this year, which by the way is a lot of revenue that's coming their way, but if they could put that on console, I wouldn't be surprised that they also put that everywhere. But that could be exclusive to Xbox if that's something you want. I think you have to look at it more from, you're going to be guaranteed to get these games and they're going to be in Game Pass. Right. That is what you're getting out of that. Yeah. Right. But they bought those.
And anywhere going forward too, right?
Yeah, so as a way to make massive profits, right? Yeah. Because that keeps them going to do whatever other bold moves they want to do. And hopefully you get that from this. If you don't like it, you don't like it. That's fine.
Right.
If the games you want are different, that's fair. Right. But I like it because it gives me a lot of they're doing a lot of cool things in the industry, and B, they're giving me games that I don't have to pay for anymore. I just pay my subscription and I just have it, right?
$17 is getting
it's pretty
you
good.
leaps and bounds more games than you even have two hands and time in the universe to play. That's just a fact. But Hargeet, listen, I'm going to come to you right now. We have Victor Alistine, who drops a very generous $5 super chat. And actually, Kay, you said this. Digital Foundry has a video on this exact subject. I learned about that, after I had.
And then they literally stole my talking points and gave me.
They stole his talking points. He says
how
how they say only Microsoft can do this storefront thing. Also said it's probably a next gen move. Indeed, I don't doubt it.
And real quick,
right,
they also said, "Oh, all these games have been PlayStation games that are ported to other platforms." Guess where you heard that one from?
Yeah, right there.
Thank you.
Yeah,
yeah.
So Hargeet,
they were definitely listening to UK. I know they stole all that from.
Well, of course they. Hargeet, again, as we get into the second topic, the question is: do you honestly feel, based on what we just talked about for the last hour, that Microsoft has a potential 10-year jump on both Nintendo? I mean, Nintendo's an easy one, but I would say even PlayStation, because PlayStation, even though people don't want to admit it, they're in a bit of turmoil. They are directionless. They don't have a roadmap. Yes, they have a console. Yes, they have a pro version of that console with no launch games to make use of the pro, which doesn't make any sense. There, we have heard, and again, this is one of those things that you don't hear about. The media is not talking about it, right? Did anyone hear that there was going to be pro versions of games? Right. What does that mean?
Well, they haven't even announced the system yet, to be fair, right? They haven't even announced it. So, but if you want me to go into it, so here's my thoughts, right?
Go again. Take it away.
As far as what Victor Alice was saying, yes, DF might be saying that. Look, I would not take it away. Technology-wise, you can overcome a lot of weird things. And, would you have expected Linux to be running Windows games on Steam Deck? Maybe you were, maybe you weren't, but they did it, right? They did it, and it performs pretty well. For what it's doing, for the hardware that it has, it's doing a pretty good job. So I wouldn't take away the potential that they could do the same thing on a PlayStation 5 or PlayStation 5 Pro, or let's say it's a next-gen play, a PlayStation 6, right? So it is viable that, that Sony put something together, right? They could finally learn what a hypervisor is. And have a proto Windows. They could actually just boot a Windows, right, and work with Microsoft to make that work on their system. Whether they choose to do the whole bloody thing, I think they should just bloody have the hypervisor there, boot up your old BSD as a hypervisor to do back compat, and then get rid of the whole double development headache and just say, we just make games like everybody for freaking PC, and we can put it on any store we want, including our own, which now just happens to work on PC, right? So now our Sony PlayStation store runs on our system and on PC. Everybody can come to our store, give us the 30%, or they can go to Epic, or they can go to Steam. Doesn't matter. We don't care. Fine, right? Bring it to us. We'll give you this benefit, whatever, right? Be part of our cloud ecosystem, be part of our cloud save and whatever else, right? So whatever benefits you get from PlayStation, that's what they were. It's totally doable. It's up to them to make that happen, right? In their current format, it's very hard because of their lockdowns on how they do hardware and hardware backwards compatibility. I get all that. But again, technology can do all sorts of fun things. And then it just becomes a licensing headache. So I wouldn't take it away. I'm sure Digital Foundry did a pretty good job of explaining why it's much simpler for Microsoft to do this, because it's already running bloody Windows. So it makes it pretty simple to just say, okay, we'll just let the Windows stuff work on the Windows console and no biggie, right? I still also believe it is a good next-gen play. It's too soon to have it worked out because there's a lot of idiosyncrasies between a keyboard mouse system and making those games work flawlessly on a console that's based on controller, right? So I think they're going to have to work through that. That just takes time. It's rigor and time. So I would think that's a good next gen play. They can start working on it now and start ramping up all the issues, get through them, and get the fixes they need to get in place. What games will work, what games won't. Or if you want to allow it, you say you have a big warning, you need a keyboard and mouse to make this work, whatever, right? When you're trying to play it on a console, right? So they'll have to work through those pieces. So I agree. It's kind of too early to say that would work on a current gen if they're going to release a portable this year or something like that. I think that what Phil was saying is more realistic, that they take the Xbox app, change it, it's Windows, Xbox app comes up, and that gives you your Xbox experience.
Yes.
But basically it's still running Windows for now if you want to do that on a ROG Ally or something like that. I don't know if their handheld is just an equivalent to a ROG Ally, and they just say, hey, we're just playing PC games, that's it. Or if they're going to say, no, it's really an Xbox, it's a Series S equivalent, and we will do the UI the way it is, but we'll also offer the Xbox app to a ROG Ally or a Ioneo or something like that, where you can bring up the Xbox interface on your new, whatever Windows handheld device that you picked, right? I think that's a pretty cool thing. But again, this might end up being a Windows 12 next gen type of thing, right? So I don't know when 12 comes out, if it's next year or the year after that, right? If they all just kind of coincide.
I think the other thing there, everything kind of.
I think that might be when all of this kind of comes together. But yeah, I understand that it might be more challenging for Sony to do it, but it's not out of the realm of possibility that they could do it. So,
right. I mean, we just have to wait. Sony is, like I've said this before, folks, they're still in a pickle. Yes, they have great games. Yes, they have great first party stuff. Sure, they do, but they have nothing coming out this year. As a matter of fact, like I said, they've told us this in their last financial report that they don't have anything coming until at least 2025, and that is March. That's a long time from now.
And by the way, did you want me to get into the 10-year lead thing?
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. Please,
should we start that? Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I don't think they're 10 years ahead, but I think they're 5 years ahead on pretty much everything when it comes to PlayStation. They generally are about that much ahead of them. 10 years is a very long time. It's a very, very long time. 10 years ago, we were just about getting into the Xbox One, right? So, that's a very long time in a console horizon. But I do think feature set wise, where the industry is going, they are a good 5 years behind. Let me paint a little bit of a picture where PlayStation is today, right? So they have a lot of console sales. They have no content. And, people keep saying, but they had Concord listed as 2024. When the financial update says we have nothing to report, take them at their word, because that's not when they're going to lie, right? The whole point of Hiroki Totoki telling people, I don't have any big games coming. You should just take it at it. That is what is happening. Now, Concord may be a play that they don't understand is going to be big, or don't expect it to be big, and it is still coming, but I wouldn't put a lot of money on it. I would think that's probably going to be a 2025 game as well. Their big surprise is Helldivers. They're going to try to sustain this year by putting games on PC.
Yep.
But here's the problem. Their profits were dwindling before that. And last year they had Spider-Man, they had Final Fantasy 16, which apparently didn't do a lot for Square, but it did sell enough to give some money to PlayStation. And they still had Call of Duty marketed by them, bundled in their console. That's going to be gone this year.
Yeah.
What happens when that happens?
Don't forget Roblox. I feel like everybody keeps Roblox was their
came out last year, right?
Yeah, it was their biggest jump in active users. When they added Roblox, they had their biggest jump in
like the fourth or fifth on their platform, right? It was pretty big. It is a big game.
They've been stagnant in active users since last generation until they released that, and then they had their record active user quarter because of it correlated directly with that. So like we always look at these certain games that appeal to us, and those are the only ones that count. But really, you kind of look at
you look at that top 10 list.
Yeah,
it's not that, right?
And oh, by the way, how long has Roblox been dominating quietly on Xbox? Like
a
for
long time,
years,
right?
And no one's been paying attention because, like you say, OBM, we don't pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Roblox shows up on PlayStation one time, and everybody's like, "Oh my god, look at the money!" How long has it been making money on Xbox? For a long time.
So now you take that world and say, all right, well, Call of Duty, one of their top games, right, is going to be marketed by Xbox. I would assume in June showcase, we'll see what the new one is, and then that will be probably bundled with whatever hardware they're going to be releasing the end of the year, right? And so you'll have that kind of thing happening on this side. So the enthusiasm for that will be over there. If this is the first next gen only, right, current gen only game, because up to now they've been cross gen, that puts a little bit of pressure on PlayStation, because now people will say, oh, I have to play Call of Duty and it's on Xbox and marketing on Xbox, and they're saying I need to get an Xbox. I'm going to go get an Xbox. And if they bundle it with a $200 Series S, it's going to be very hard to convince them that you need to spend a heck of a lot more to get a PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
Now, they might have the PlayStation 5 Pro, the best place to play it, but will they have the advertising for that?
No.
No, they won't. It will be Microsoft's advertising for itself. So when that happens, right, could there be a shift of console sales towards Xbox? It might happen. It may not, right? But all the regulators were saying there would be one. Microsoft was saying, yes, it would be about this percentage, right? So there is an expectation that there will be something. Sony's internal documents that got leaked with Insomniac said it would be $1.5 billion revenue hit. And their profits are about that now. That's basically their profit margin. And so if you take that away, if you take away even a substantial chunk of that, say half of that, what money are they left with? That's going to be their problem going forward, right? So they have to figure out how to fund them, their new stuff. They have to fund their new hardware, and all that while their profits are dwindling even further down from where they are now, where they're in crisis. It's just not looking that good. Now, does that mean it's the end of the world for them? No. It's a lot easier if you're Microsoft, because of course Microsoft could fund you, right? They could give you money. Sony doesn't really have a lot of luxury with that. They kind of took the money from PlayStation and funded their other stuff. So it's going to be tough for them to do the reverse. Again, they could take loans, they could do stuff and make it work. It's fine, but they have to come up with a plan that would make that work. And what will that be? That's where they're stuck. And they have an interim CEO that they have to kind of go figure out what the next chapter is for PlayStation, while they're pivoting away from the games they were making that they canceled. And they have to now go back to making the games they usually make, yet still find a way to do the thing that Microsoft did well, to the point of what we got from a FBI agent here as to what Phil did. Phil solidified his bottom line by buying into live service games. Whether we like them or not, it's irrelevant. Roblox, getting that as a console exclusive for years, dude, it's money. It's just money in the bottom line. They just get money out of it, right? Having Minecraft be something that it's a top selling game of all time, right? So you get money. It's just constant revenue for them. They now have Elder Scrolls Online, which we don't pay attention to, but there's plenty of players. Fallout 76, there's plenty of players. And they now have Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, Overwatch, on and on, not to mention King, right? All that money, just bottom line, they just have cash now to keep doing things where Sony won't. This is going to be a problem for them. I don't know how they overcome that. They will do something. They're not going to die. I don't think they'll die, but I just want to point out they have a lot more challenges right now. So I'm very fascinated by articles of Xboxes in dire straits and dying when Sony is literally in that position and needs to change what they're doing, right? And then literally they're doing that. And you see it happening directly from Hiroki Totoki going to all the studios saying you're not making enough money. And their bet with Bungie failed so far.
Yeah.
I hope the next DLC works. I don't know if it will. I hope it does. And I hope Marathon next year comes out and does well. But we don't know that will happen. So we don't know where they're going to end up, right? That was their big live service bet. They kind of took the talent from Bungie and put it on their other games and made that into a mess. I don't know, right? So this is stuff they've had to learn. I don't know if that's going to get corrected. We'll see what happens. But that's kind of the state of PlayStation. And maybe that works out. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe they have a big like PS3 level meltdown and they have to kind of reinvent. That may happen. You can't keep spending $250, $300 million on these games. Takes 5-6 years to put them out and then say, oh, cool, that will work itself out. It's not working. They're telling us it's not working. So it might be that is a pressure on them to do it. I saw something from Destin where he was saying that I think in 5 years, everybody's going to be multi-plat or whatever. I don't know. There was something about that. I don't know what the article was saying. I didn't read all of it.
Yeah, he dropped that article this afternoon. I got to read through it.
I don't disagree. And I think that's the 10 years ahead. I think what Phil has been doing for his 10-year tenure, right? I think this is when he was just about now is when he was taking over 10 years ago, has put Xbox and Microsoft in a position to have a very strong, prominent position in gaming and has been pushing the envelope of what gaming should be, pushing things like PC day and date, pushing the mobile aspect, cloud, right? He's been pushing things with subscriptions with Game Pass, day and date, right? I think there's been a lot over here. And how do you run a successful platform? You need live games that people actually want to play. And they just went and got the ones that people are playing, right? And then didn't muck with it. So they didn't go to Mojang and say, stop doing this and let me take your people from here and make my game over here. And they're like, just go do your thing. Go do what you're doing. Let me know how I can expand where you're releasing, so we have even more players for you, have even more revenue for you, right? That's kind of what they did with them, which is, I think, the right thing. Obviously, it's worked out. It's obviously worked out, right? So, so I like, this is something hopefully they learn. I don't know what happens on that side, but 10 years, I'd say at least 5 years, they are definitely way ahead of PlayStation. Nintendo. Nintendo's just gonna Nintendo, as I keep saying.
Yeah,
and
that's exactly what they're gonna do.
They just keep printing money. Like, sadly, they just keep printing money. Now, will they always get rewarded? Maybe not. But right now, it's hard to say Nintendo isn't just kicking butt. And they really don't need to change their formula. It's bloody well working. So just keep doing what you're doing until it doesn't work. Right.
So, Hargeet, I'm sorry, but I got to push back on you. I need Nintendo to stop selling me dust. Give me a proper hardware. I know it's self-serving. Team Petty. Now that's where I am. I know they're making money, but
not
give
at
me
all.
something of note. Come on.
And just by the virtue of like hardware getting more and more powerful as it is, that's just going to happen, right?
Yeah,
like,
what they're going to give happens.
You is going to be good
I
enough.
feel like people forgot. People forgot about the GameCube and the Wii U, and and just how quickly you can fall off the top. And yeah, they are in a extremely strong position today, and they probably will be for the next generation. But with how fast things are changing, and with how much competition is going to be in the mobile space or the handheld space or the on-the-go space, that and the fact that a lot of their IP strength comes from us, like us old heads, I think that they may have to think about diversifying themselves to be able to grow and compete in future industries. So it's not impossible that they eventually
run into a wall.
Think about Disney. Remember when Disney would just put things in a vault and would never put them out, and now you see Disney releasing stuff like on their own streaming app. They came around and changed their business with the times. And I see Nintendo a lot like Disney when it comes to how they'll adjust to the markets as they change.
Yeah, so I mean, I like Animal Crossing. I don't know if the average age of player is like 40 or something like that. I think it's going to be young.
This is when I play every day.
Yeah, but there are a lot of younger players as well, right? But and you could say the same thing for some of the other games that they have. But you might be right that there's a lot of older players as well. But look, even when you had the GameCube, the Wii U, they always had the portable, and that was what kept them going. They just always had the portable, and that always kept winning. And that's what then the Switch just took their big strength and said, "Hey, let's just make that our console." And so
now they'll have competition, though, so it'll be interesting.
Well, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I like what you put down, Hargeet. Maybe 10 years is being, too far out, but I definitely agree with you with the 5. I think that they are ahead of the game, and the way you broke down how people do not give Sony, people giving Sony too much credit for being in first place, but they do have a lot of hurdles in front of them. Are they going to be able to jump all those hurdles? I honestly don't know, but we know that they are bleeding money. They certainly are, and just look at what happened with Spider-Man 2. They had to sell a significant amount of full-priced copies to break even, which I don't know if they have. I know they've sold 10 million. The question is, did 10 million people buy that game at $76.43? The answer is absolutely not. They got most of those sales from console bundles. And what everyone seems to forget is that console bundle was $50. It wasn't the full price. But worse than that, Marvel or Disney got 25 of that 50. So
worse. It was 35 to 50%.
Well, there you go.
On bundles.
50%.
35 to 50 on bundles. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go.
So they got maybe you got $25 if that's what you mean. Yeah, they probably got
$25 for the game rather than
$25. Yeah,
for the full price of the game. So they have to sell
half of it.
Three games. They have to sell 3 bundles to make that money back. Okay, let's bring you in on this. What are your thoughts on how far the moves that Phil Spencer is making for Xbox, for Microsoft are
How
ahead.
far ahead are they? Yeah, it is interesting to hypothesize, right? So I think that, and I've said this multiple times, right? When you make a lot of money or when you have that much resources, you can afford to think. You do it all the time, like in your day to day, right? You think about what we're going to do next year. We start planning for vacation for next year, and you start putting money away. When you have such almost seemingly infinite resources, you stop thinking about the people that are alive buying your consoles and your services today, and you start thinking about their children, because you have that outlook, you have that reach, right? We've said this on this show before, right? They see you have this ridiculous feeling that you want to own something. Pshaw, right? Look at your child. He's playing wherever you ask him to play, on a tablet, doesn't care about a controller, doesn't care. Ownership, what's that? That's who they're after, right?
Yeah.
And they can afford to think that far ahead, because they have so much money and resources within them that even if they lose a hardcore fan base here and there, they're gonna be all right. Because guess what? They got Call of Duty. Guess what? They got Minecraft. Guess what? These things perpetuate. So the idea that we think of them in this short term where, they're making it is hilarious to me. Okay. Now I do want to push back on one thing that Hargeet was saying. And he's saying that the needle that they're threading might be a little difficult because it's hard. It's very difficult to establish what a console is versus what a PC is, and the controller and keyboard and stuff. Guess who's already solved that problem? Valve did. And they did it with this guy. Does anybody remember what this thing is? The huge flop known as the Steam controller, right? This came out. It was a huge flop. Nobody cared about it. It was ridiculous. But guess what all of this came into? They built a monster database of community members, people who love that game, turning, keyboard mouse only games into controller support. So as soon as this guy came out, it could play every game, even games that don't support controllers, because Bob and Bill and Tom and Jerry literally put that on there a long time ago. They just had to port it to this guy.
Tom and Jerry, I know those guys. Sorry.
You know those guys. At the end of the day,
world, of course we do.
That's right. At the end of the day, just like Microsoft, right? They put Azure in place in the 360. Did you think Azure was going to be the big marketing thing, the big, huge backbone to gaming it is today? No. But they set that up way back when. This is about what I'm talking about, right? They have the money and the resources to not worry about paying the bills today and worry about, hey, if we put this in place now, 5, 6, 10 years from now, we're going to be able to make benefit. And they have been able to do that multiple times. Now, I will say we have given them smoke because they always seem to be they're clairvoyant. They see the future, right? But unlike Madam Web, they don't know how to prevent that future from happening. And they'll give you a set-top box. Call it, what was it called again? I forget the name of that old set-top box. Web TV, right? Yeah. And then completely miss the boat on the actual damn internet, right? That happens all the time. They'll create this smartphone and then completely miss the boat on the ingenuity that eventually turns into iOS and or Android, right? So Boom, I'm with you. I completely agree with you. As far as how far out they are, all you have to look at is the Xbox One generation. And Hargeet was saying, oh, look at 10 years ago, we were just coming into the Xbox One. What did they say 10 years ago when we were coming to the Xbox One? That we would have DRM everywhere.
Yes. Yep.
That you'd have cameras
online
following
always.
you, all this stuff online always. You'd have these robots that are talking to you wherever you go. People just went
smart devices.
Smart devices everywhere.
Well, just to kind of add something to back you up there, Kay. Jez has said a few times, because he got to see some of the documentation that came from Microsoft around that same time, and he said everything that was in that documentation was spot on in terms of where the industry was going. Everything from the transmedia to the smart devices.
Where they screwed up? Their cowardice.
Matrix is the name.
No. Their cowardice. They should have stuck to their damn guns, because today, guess what we would have? We would have digital rights media. We would have the ability to trade our digital world. That's what we would have. But instead, as soon as people went, no, what did they go? Oh, well, and they started doing it piecemeal. And now if you look around, that 10-year-old vision has come to pass, as we've seen. And they've instituted every single thing they were going to institute piecemeal, except the stuff that would have benefited us, aka digital rights media. You know what I'm saying?
And had
real quick, let me just pump the brakes for a second because we got some breaking news. Abdel114 put this in. Paris Lily, and shout out to Kloot, Kloot. Paris has just reported 54 minutes ago that Jeff Grubb tomorrow on XCast will in fact
about to drop some
a
tea.
Gears 6 scoop.
He's going to drop some tea.
About that for a bit.
Yes, sir. And all I will tell you is prepare to melt your faces, ladies and gentlemen. Prepare to melt your faces.
Coalition has been in the background.
Okay. So Abdel114 is
he says Kloot is me. That's right. Y'all got to keep your same tags in the same places. We forget. We don't know
thanks so much for the info, brother. Super appreciate
it. Yes. But no, like honestly, at the end of the day, I think that Microsoft, the only piece of the puzzle that they are missing is they need to stick to their guns.
Yeah, indeed.
Because multiple times they put on
the one of my
things,
hat. Kay. You stole it, man. Oh, I should have cut you off.
I apologize, sir. I apologize. Because
keep going.
Bright minds think alike, man.
I wouldn't say they should have stuck to all of it. If they had done a few things differently, it would have worked out. Like the thing they should have done was did what PS5 did, is say we have a digital version of the console. Good luck finding it. So we're gonna have the $400 version of the Xbox One without the Kinect.
The price was a problem.
Right. The price was seriously a problem. Yes.
But see, the thing is, it doesn't matter if the optics are it's $400. It doesn't matter if it's but for now, like the majority of the consoles you're gonna find in market, because it's always hard to find at the beginning of the life cycle. You're just gonna get the Kinect bundled version. Those who are hardcore,
the digital only version was vaporware for a long time. You're absolutely right.
But but optics, it's there, right? It's there.
It was $400, even though, let's be real, it wasn't.
And that's all that was necessary for that specific piece was say, hey, we do have one without the Kinect, but good luck finding it. And they would never say that, but it's $400. Absolutely, go buy that one. And then we have one with the Kinect, and that's all you can ever pre-order. All you can ever find is the one with the Kinect. But again, the enthusiasts won't care. Even if they take the Kinect and chuck it, they'll still just buy it because they're enthusiasts. They'll buy it. So the first year or two, you could just do that, right? And that would have taken care of that problem. The other one was the power narrative. That was a major fail. I don't know how they didn't realize the other side was going to be that much more. But if they had maybe like 2+ T flops, 2.2, 2.3, whatever, that would have eliminated that.
It was more memory than anything else, but it
was poor execution, right? It's poor execution in the hardware, poor execution.
And the memory bandwidth. I agree. The memory bandwidth, the SRAM,
that was
the
Don Matrick telling everybody. Don Matrick telling everybody there's a console for it was poor execution. But the point is, and I think that's what Kay was getting at was the data, the trends, where they were anticipating the market going.
They are always right.
You got to execute though, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So you
can know the others in the details.
You can know the play that the other team's going to run, but if you don't, if your guys just get run over at the line of scrimmage, then it may not matter, right? And I think
that's the last thing they majorly failed on was not renewing Call of Duty. They should never have given up.
One of the biggest mistakes that they look back and they say
massive mistake.
And real quick, I'll give a little bit of smoke.
Mistake that will now never happen.
I see you in the chat there, Lucius. He's like, I think we were having a conversation. He's like, well, they tried to market the Kinect like it was the next iPhone. You got a lot to thank Kinect for this iPhone, because all that technology in the Kinect is right here. Without that thing, this wouldn't exist today. Thank you, Kinect. It really mattered. To this point, to this very day, there are technologies you have no idea of that still to this day are existing because of that game ridiculousness that came out that you thought was nothing. So
it's in all sorts of commercial applications.
Ridiculous. Yeah. Well, listen, let's bring in One Bad Mother. Get your final take on this before we get everyone out of here. Again, shout out to over 700 people watching live. We super appreciate it. We'll get to the super chats that are left here. Big thank you to everyone that have dropped the super chat in here. We'll get to all of them in a second. One Bad Mother, how far ahead is Xbox that they're not getting credit for, because everyone thinks that it's okay for Sony, but Sony really is not okay. They're just not.
Well, so I'm trying to think of where to start on this because you said a couple of things. It's like, oh man, I want to chase squirrels in 3 different directions. But like, I will say I understand the just people that are somebody who's gotten older. When we see change, sometimes not everybody at our ages adjust, and I think a lot of times that's what you see in the media, and they're seeing change. They're seeing some things changing that they don't like. And when that happens, and we see this, like, again, we go back to politics, everything else, people got to find a scapegoat, right? They got to find something, or they look at who's like maybe the face of the change, and that's who gets targeted. So I think that there is some of that happening. But, to Kay's point, when he was talking about, one of the things they didn't do is kind of stay on their square, basically. I agree with that, because anytime that Microsoft has really done something meaningful in the gaming industry, it's when they've been ahead of the curve. It's when they've done the thing that you did not ask for and you didn't know you needed it until you started using it. And then you're like, well, how did I even like make it without this thing? And that is also kind of the way that really big tech in general works. So I don't think there's anything surprising here. I feel like this is, Microsoft and Sony right now, where they're at. It's like that whole Denny Green thing. They are who we thought they were. They're basically doing what
Boom's
they do.
favorite term.
They are who we thought they were.
She get $1 every time I say that.
Japanese companies generally are a little bit more conservative, and Sony has a comfortable spot in their segment. They're going to what they're going to do is let somebody else kind of walk through the landmine, get a few limbs blown off, carve out the path, and then they'll try to go down that path. That's that. And there's companies that do well continuing in that space. And to be fair, Sony has done that up until now. With you look at trophies versus achievements. You look at how the online, the social revolution took place, and how they eventually copied it the following generation. And every single time that Microsoft, I feel like, has been at their best in gaming, they've also had to push back and had the people not accepting, especially the established people in the media, and even the established segment of gamers at the time. Every single time you go back to the original Xbox that got laughed at upon release, and people were like, what do you mean a first person shooter is going to be the face of your console? Like, those people play those on PC. What are you doing making that your star? Putting the hard drive in there. Nobody asked for the hard drive. Going broadband only. When Bill Gates got up on stage and announced the Xbox for the first time, broadband adoption was extremely low. It was just a few percent at the time. And they saw where that adoption was going to go, and they planned to make it a broadband only console so that they could achieve the things they wanted to achieve, even though at the time it made no sense. It's like there is no market for this thing. And, when they came out with paid online for whatever it was, $40, $50 at the time for Xbox Live, and it's like, this is what we need to do so we can add all these features into the system, so we can have a curated thing and friends list and the voice chat and all these other, all these things that we just take for granted today just sort of came with that. And, I remember like media members come out and saying at the time, it's like, you're not just charging them like whatever it was, 40, 50, but now you're also making them have to like double or triple the price of their online subscriptions to go from DSL to broadband, right? Pushback happened at that time. Then you move on to the next generation. You go to, nobody asked for achievements. We remember all the stuff about horse armor, right? Microsoft is going to ruin the industry for allowing a microtransaction. Fortnite, the biggest game in the world right now, wouldn't even exist without microtransactions. Netflix on consoles, like downloading movies, nobody asked for that stuff, but now you see it's like an expectation that your devices have all the apps on them, right? Like, and then you even look at the one thing they did really do last generation, which was the Game Pass, the day one subscriptions, and trying to again disrupt the market with that. So anytime they've been at their best, they've been doing the things nobody asked for. Oftentimes it comes with controversy. I remember the article that came out when the 360 launched and they revealed all the stuff, and after Jay Allard was on stage and Peter Moore were on stage kind of talking about I remember like Jay Allard like kind of like was getting clowned for like when he sat down like Indian style or whatever on the stage, and like was talking about like the way they're going to connect your device to you and it's going to represent you and all this stuff. And I remember some of the stuff that came out at the time where the articles are like, this is the first console that I'm not going to buy and that I don't need. It's offering me things that have nothing to do with what I've asked for, and it's not why we buy gaming consoles. And now you look forward and, you know, everything, you know, again, I didn't even mention matchmaking, digital game storefronts, like all of this stuff is DLC, right? Like all this stuff that got super significant pushback ended up revolutionizing things, and the entire social revolution within gaming, which is, I think, I would argue has not only impacted the game industry, it's impacted society, it's impacted pop culture. It's the reason why Fortnite and Call of Duty are what they are, was led by, you know, Microsoft having those visions and coming out with a console that was broadband only, and charging so they could create a future service, you know, future looking service.
I mean,
that was
OBM. Imagine Netflix. Remember, Reed Hastings has said it. They literally brought Netflix into the future, kicking and screaming. They didn't want to give up their discs. What is this streaming thing? They created the world we see of today as streaming. They did it. They built Netflix's app for them so that they could be on the 360 because you need to come to the future.
It's changed that whole thing. And
like,
and
can you imagine?
By the way, Reed Hastings was Satya's mentor for a year.
Mentor,
so,
yes,
yeah, yeah. So there's a lot that kind of like overlap between those two companies. But so I say all that to go back to Kay's point, and really to your point, Boom, and about are they ahead of Sony? Yeah, and they should be. They're the big tech company. This is the reason why regulators worry about them. The reason why they get regulated more than Sony does is because what the big tech companies are able to do, they're able to aim for what's essentially invisible targets for everybody else, but they're able to use the data and, you know, and line up and hit that target even, or get close to those targets even without, you know, anybody being able to see it. And it's something that big tech can do. They can afford to do. They have the data. They also, you know, with all their business to business relationships, they know where things are moving in the industry, and they have really a huge advantage. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of people do freak out when they make gigantic moves that are potentially going to be disruptive. And I think that, you know, the regulators, even when they bought ABK, it's like they made it all about console and then even the stuff about cloud, but they understood that if Microsoft gets this powerful with this kind of content and IP and platforms and access to this many customers and that much data, that they're going to have opportunities to really sit atop of the industry and move it where they want to. And that's just kind of the way big tech works. And so I get why people get you know, afraid of that, but that is what they're doing, and that's what they're trying to do, and that's why they don't care. They don't care if Sony continues to go 2-1 in this console, when user bases are staying very similar anyways. So yeah, and moving into the next generation, this again, or agreeing with Kay on this, I think that we saw in the Tom Warren article that there is some, you know, concern, and they recognize that there is going to be controversy when they do put AI type of things into game development, into content creation, into the platform itself. I think, you know, I understand that stuff, and, you know, obviously people, I think all that stuff can't be painted with a broad brush. They all probably deserve their own conversations, but I think they should continue to push forward. And because at the end of the day, that stuff is going to eventually, 5 years from now, just like, you know, the smart devices, right? Like now everybody was so worried about being spied on. Now nobody blinks twice when I'm talking about my girlfriend about like buying hiking shoes, and I pull up my phone, and all of a sudden it's giving me ads for hiking shoes. It's like, it's listening to you all the time, and nobody even thinks about it. You give Facebook all your information.
Again, OBM, it's what it really comes down to. The most simplistic answer is when Xbox does it, it's bad. When PlayStation does it, it's good. I'm sorry, that's what it is. But look, this has been a fascinating, unbelievable conversation. A lot of people are really, really digging it. I like having these thinking man podcasts where we're not just yelling at the sun, waving the fist. Everything that we've talked about here today are facts you can easily find. Nothing. No one on the panel was facetious. No one is, pretending that these things aren't true. These are factual things that are happening. Now, your opinion may be that everything at Sony is okay. And if you think that, that's fine. I'm not going to fight you on it, but the numbers say otherwise. Let me catch up in these last couple of super chats, and we'll get everyone out of here on time. We have Quick Gameplay. Doesn't drop just one. He drops two. Very generous super chats. The first one of $10 says people didn't realize how much Microsoft handheld with all storefronts is going to change gaming. Imagine Microsoft announces that their new next-gen handheld, as well as announcing purchasing Square Enix. I mean, Square isn't doing so good either, and Sony ain't buying them. So that's that's an interesting point. His second super chat of $5, he says FBI agent is right. Xbox revenue now has surpassed Windows revenue for Microsoft under his leadership. Shareholders hate more revenue. Wait. He was being facetious there.
Yeah,
we have
obviously, right?
Dumpy Koala drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, just remember, Xbox is number one. Thank you so much for that. We have, let's see, RC Polygons drops an additional very generous $10 super chat and says, with your talking about Xbox investing into live service games like Call of Duty and Overwatch, that is why I believe Xbox will buy Take-Two for GTA Online, for that GTA Online money. The NBA, WW2K microtransactions, and Zynga. I mean, it would be, I'd love it, but again, it doesn't matter to me. I just want more content in my service. That's all I care about. But I don't know if they could push it past regulators. But if games are everywhere, hard to say no. You know what I'm saying? Hard to say no. I mean, games are everything's an Xbox. You can play everything. We're not holding back from anyone. You can play it on your Switch. You can play it on your Switch 2. You can play it on your PlayStation 17 if there is one. And it's going to be very interesting. J Mac drops a very generous $5 super chat. And he says, I think Game Pass dominance begins with Call of Duty on the box. There is no way they don't promote Call of Duty on their box series for the win. Yeah, it's going to be plastered everywhere. And it's probably going to be one of those situations where Hargeet said there's going to be a box that's $200 that's going to have an entire front-facing Call of Duty logo on it, promoting the new Call of Duty, which Sony can't do. And people are going to do what they did when Spider-Man was $200 or the PlayStation 4 Slim. You remember that 2018? They sold more PlayStation 4s during Black Friday than they've ever sold their consoles in the history of the company. Why? Because Spider-Man 2018 was in this special edition of Spider-Man console that was $200. I mean, who could say no to that? People were buying 3 at a time. Everyone get one. Like Oprah, you get a car, everyone gets a car. That's what happened. And that's exactly what could happen this year as well. 901 the Gamer drops a very generous $2 super chat and simply just puts 2 emojis, a bomb and an explosion. Brother, thanks so much for the generosity. More importantly, thank you so much for being here. And lastly, 901 the Gamer has become a new channel member. Brother, that is so great of you. Thank you so much for the support. We super appreciate it here. A big thank you to all of the super chats. Obviously, they do power the show in a big way. We gave away $300 worth of giveaways last week. As for our now annual Easter giveaway, we're adding that to the list of giveaways, and we honestly can't do that without the support. So a big thank you there. Let's get to the outros. And One Bad Mother. Let's get to you first. tell everyone where they can find you on social media, but more importantly, what else you got going on? What's going on with your YouTube channel, brother? We gotta promote
the thing that's taking longer than Halo's early seasons for content. Yeah. First of all, Boom, thanks for having me again, and it was awesome being here with the panel. Really good discussions. I really like to geek out with this stuff, so appreciate you thinking about me on these topics, because when we get into some of the other future looking stuff, look me up as well, because these are always 100%. Fun to talk about. Industry is going to, it's interesting kind of seeing a lot of the sentiment. I understand it, like we said before when we were talking about the sports and just really the change, right? Like all that stuff. But as somebody that was fascinated by gaming from, like, God, I guess maybe the first time I saw a Pong machine or something when I was like a few years old, like all the way to like the first time I saw Robotron at the arcades or whatever. It's just, I've always been fascinated by the gaming, because it is like, it has been the closest thing to magic. And, when you see technology, evolve, and you kind of see that do that with art and entertainment, is like, it is a lot of fun. And I think, there's a lot of stuff that's around here and you get caught up into the drama stuff, but I think there's going to be a lot of fun things to talk about too. So I'm excited from a technology and consumer standpoint. I'm really excited to see kind of what's going to be coming down the pipeline with all these new tools and stuff. So can't wait to talk more about it. And I am going to be talking about that on the channel. I did get a lot further. I finally learned some, video production, and I got a logo, and I've been running it by people. I gotta edit a few things, and I've been starting to gather stuff for videos. So hopefully my goal, I think, is I'm going to try to keep it realistic and not overpromise like 343 did early on, over and over. Keep making the same mistake over and over. I think by the showcases I'll have some things lined up, but there's really a lot to talk about, and a lot of really interesting and exciting things, and just I mean, at the end of the day, just things that are different. And I think the industry for a little while was stagnant, and so it's kind of fun to kind of get into some of the things that are happening. But I'll let everybody know about that. But in the meantime, just follow me on Twitter, Mutha_1, MUTHA_ONE. Look forward to the next time.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate that. And Kay Asante, I would imagine that this Saturday there's going to be a powerful podcast with you, and of course the Needless one, who couldn't get here because of work, but
the fraudulent one, yes,
fraudulent
saga,
the fraudulent saga. By all means, please sell the brand of your show on Saturdays with Everborn Saga. Usually some big time guests in there. The Gaming Circle podcast, Saturday mornings, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you're not sub, folks, by all means, what the heck are you doing? Talk about it, Kay.
No, I appreciate it, man. It's always great to be on here with such great panel members. As do I, OBM. I enjoy having these hypothetical, forward-thinking, forward-looking discussions. It's always super interesting and exciting, and you learn something along the way. You add more to your repertoire and understand things that you may not have understood before. So I always appreciate, you coming through and having these conversations with you. And of course, Hargeet, who is able to challenge me on my notions. And I appreciate that, because you got to go back and forth and solidify your thoughts on it. So it's always great, podcasting with you guys and getting that done. So as for me, you can catch me and the aforementioned Everborn fraudulent saga, who did not show up even though he was supposed to. You'll catch us on Saturday mornings, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're hoping to see some Gears footage this week, because there's gonna be something to talk about. I ain't gonna say nothing, but I'm just saying I hear it's things, man. I can't wait to see what they have to show.
I've heard some things also that I can't disclose, and
I hear it's gonna be cool. If it exists,
yeah.
Oh boy,
if it exists,
be cool. Yes, it's gonna be super cool.
It is gonna be great. Actually,
absolutely. And of course, myself and Mr. John Wolf are hosting a show
chat, by the way.
On Monday. Yes, I see him in the chat on Monday nights. It's so weird, Boom. Real quick, last Monday we had like over 100 people in the chat and 100 people watching, and then we check and it was more people on Twitter and less people on YouTube. It was the weirdest thing. A bunch of people on Twitter were watching. I'm like, that is wild. Like over 100 people just watching on Twitter.
Wow.
It was really weird. Anyway,
I didn't even know that happened.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You can check us out on Monday nights. That is 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's me and Mr. John Wolf. And what are we doing? We're talking about people and their journeys to PC or incorporating PC into their gaming sphere. Last week, we had the elusive one talking about some handhelds that he was able to acquire. Don't worry about if you don't know who the elusive one is. He doesn't want you to know, so don't worry about it. But yes, come check us out. That is the Gamers Playground, Mondays, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard. I always love podcasting with you guys, so thank you guys so much for being here. It's awesome.
Thanks.
Super appreciate it. And last and no way least, first of all, you can't find him on social media, and he's smart. He leaves no digital fingerprint or footprint. Like Mrs. Boom, she has 0 fingerprint on social media, not her bag. She does behind the scenes stuff. Hargeet Chani, sell the brand of course, who you work with on a weekly basis. Gaz, he is amazing. Asa, again, another incredible community member. And Game On Daily is a site that has seen significant success. They do a lot of really great work over there. Sell it, brother. And also, where could people not find you on social media? Where if they want to reach out and strike up a conversation.
Yeah, so certainly check out GameOnDaily.com and YouTube.com/GameOnDaily. And of course, Asa and Gaz have their own channels. I'm actually going to start doing some stuff on my channel,
Nice.
but I will finish the book first. So if you want to subscribe to my channel, I guess I can put my thing in the private chat.
You absolutely should put it in there.
And I will, here we go, drop it. Okay. And so you can throw that in the chat. And so subscribe if you want to, and I will start putting stuff out there probably later in the month. I'll try to do some live streams and whatnot, and give some reviews of things that I've been playing, and maybe some stuff that I saw at PAX, which I haven't done any of that yet. And then maybe just go over the news in some sort of fashion. But Gaming Arcadia, check that out. That's Asa's channel. He's got something going on pretty much every day. Check that out. And then Septic Sauce is the Gaz channel, and he's also trying to do stuff almost every day. Check that out as well. And those are the two channels on YouTube. And then of course there's Fawn's Gaming at Fawn's Gaming is a channel on YouTube, and Games Talk Live. I'm co-hosting that with Fawn's every Sunday at 6 p.m. U.S. Eastern. Next up will be the Night Shift with C Money and Doodle. That's on Point for Gamers. Check that channel out. And then we'll be there 6 p.m. U.S. Eastern time, starting that up on Friday. And what else am I on? I think that's it for now. I don't know if RDX ever comes back. That's Tuesdays. But yeah, that's what's going on. But yeah, you can subscribe, and then at some point I'll start doing some content on my channel as well.
Yeah, I'll drop it again, folks, in there for you. Please go over there and subscribe, support Hargeet Chani, who does a lot of phenomenal work here in the spaces that we all run in. But Hargeet, great to have you here,
I'll
brother.
probably end up on KSante freaking every Saturday. I end up there anyway. Right? So
always welcome, sir.
Drops in.
We love it.
Conversations.
It's good. It's good. I love it when good voices come in here. This is fantastic. You're
absolutely. And we're honored to have you here every week, Hargeet. So thank you so much. And of course, a lot of times you jump in on Breakfast at Boom. You jump on when we have breaking news. I'm working on tomorrow's show. That'll be up for you to kind of get out there early. I'm not sure now with this Gears news what we're going to talk about. I don't know when Kind of Funny goes live. I think they do it early. If it is early,
it's like afternoon time, right? It's XCast, right? That's when they're doing it.
Yeah, the XCast. Yes. Yeah.
It's usually earlier in the day, but I don't know when they publish it. I don't know if they do it live.
Well, I've been a Patreon member for
okay, gotcha.
Kind of Funny for I think a decade. It's been as long as they've been around. I've been a Patreon supporter, so I always get the stuff early. So if there is, we'll talk about it. But Spartan661 drops a very generous $5 super chat on our way out the door, and he says Double Barrel Gaming is the GOAT. Dude, that is very kind of you to say. Thank you, Boom, for having great podcasters on your show. Again, thank you so much for the generosity, but the very kind words we super appreciate as well. Okay, that's going to do it for us, ladies and gentlemen. A big thank you to over 700 people watching live. We did have over 200 people watching on Twitter, which is freaking crazy, right? Like, it's unbelievable. But you know what? Well, view is a view. And of course, before we get out of here, if you are finding the channel for the first time, and I saw a lot of new names here, please consider subscribing. You're going to start noticing that I'm going to be doing a lot of shorts. I did, I think, 3 today. I'm going to be unveiling my very stout Xbox controller collection. I just have to set everything up. I have some very unique pieces that are one of a kind. I have a G.I. Joe one. I have a Thundercats one. I got a Needler one that was done by the Xbox Pope for me. It is amazing. So I'll be showing that off. And obviously, I'm going to be showing off some of the Xbox coins, the collectible coins that we're going to start giving away. But here's the trick. We're only giving those away to not just channel members. You don't have to be a channel member. You got to be subscribed. I'm working with Ben Kenobi behind the scenes to get a ton of them. I just mailed out a bunch for the winners from the Easter show on Friday. Those winners have already gotten or are on the way to get their coins. And some of the coins are very limited. They're very rare, and they're one of a kind. So we're going to start giving those away during the week. But the only caveat is you got to be subscribed to the channel. And if you're not, you won't be considered. And again, I don't think that's asking a lot to get a coin that I'm paying for to be made and also shipped. So you don't pay nothing. You simply just subscribe to the channel. And when we do it and you win, well, you get sent the coin. But that's going to do it for us. Big thank you for being here, supporting Double Barrel Gaming. And I will close out today's show with something that's incredibly important to me. Hopefully one day, folks, it'll be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And he would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you next week on the newest episode of Primetime Gaming with Mr. Boomstick and Friends.